السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So, last week we went over some basic scenarios about the situation that we're in. So we talked about how the Prophet ﷺ, when he went through adversity and difficulty during the Battle of Uhud, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. That you do not be weak and don't be sad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet ﷺ. And this is to give them strength and give them a sense of focus. Because last week, a lot of the energy was either for people that had negative thoughts or at least opinions about the closure of the masajid. So we went over detailed discussion about its closure, why we're doing it, the whole scenario, mentioned many different ayahs of the Quran, many different hadith, even examples in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So if you want to go back and listen to that, you can go onto our YouTube channel and you can listen to that, inshallah. Today, although I do want to touch upon something a little bit different, and since many of us are already in self-isolation, we're already in some form of quarantine. So how do we bring our frame of mind? Because as a human being, normally the first thing that happens is you see something and then you have a perspective. You're seeing it from a certain perspective. So which perspective should a Muslim view this self-isolation, this quarantine? That's one. The other is, what does Islam really have to say with it? Because we know that there are hadith, there are verses of the Quran, or these are hadith where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned La rahbaniyat fil Islam. That as Muslims, we're not allowed to isolate ourselves and cut ourselves off from the rest of the world. So how do we view and how do we see this quarantine? What are we supposed to make of it from an Islamic perspective? And then afterwards also how we can organize our time. If we are in this quarantine, we're isolating ourselves, and we're observing the social distancing, in which way, shape, or form should we be conducting ourselves? So I'll begin with the perception. And the perception, because when normally, there's a lot of, like I mentioned last week, there's a lot of emotions. People have a lot of fear, there's a lot of apprehension, there's a lot of uncertainty. Nobody really knows what's going to happen and what's really going on. So, as Muslims, what is our perspective? What do we see it? Because there are a lot of emotions, a lot of people going through a lot of difficulty and hardship, financial hardship, emotional hardship, and it's just not just us. We're living with our families are suffering as well. So the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned in the hadith, he said, ما يصيب المسلم من نصب ولا وصب ولا هم ولا حزن ولا أذى ولا غم حتى الشوكة يشاقها. That a Muslim does not go through any type of fatigue, or he does not have a disease or sorrow or sadness or hurt or any type of distress, even if a thorn pricks a Muslim, حتى إلا كفر الله بها من خطاياه. Except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses that as a means to remove and purge this person of his sins. So when you and I are, whatever we may be going through, I know a lot of people going through financial difficulty, that's the number one thing. Many people are thriving businesses, good businesses, suddenly everything is at a standstill, overnight, just like that. Businesses are closed, there's no way for them to receive an income, they have to pay rent to different, their homes and their businesses, and there are many people who have lost their jobs, unemployment. A lot of people have been fighting for unemployment, so people have that financial stress, and that financial stress brings on a lot of emotional and psychological stress as well. And then there's also the stress of being quarantined, being stuck in one place. Many of us are used to just being out in the world and doing things. Our children are suffering, they want to play with their friends and their relatives, their cousins, and they're not able to. They're being stuck in one place as well. So there's a lot of added stress. And on top of that, what's also unusual is that, if you, like, let's just say the business owners, let's just say they made a mistake, and that's why their businesses are tanking or they're not doing well. Well, that's something that, you understand, okay, I made a mistake. That's my fault. I can blame myself. But when suddenly, a situation is forced upon you, that adds to the hysteria, that adds to this tension that a person has. That I'm in this situation and I didn't even ask for it. It just suddenly, within just one day, like a month ago, nobody would have even thought it. Even at that time, the virus was still spreading. Nobody could have imagined that we'd be in this situation right now. So we find ourselves in this situation, and and the Prophet ﷺ, he's telling us that in this hadith, whatever you're going through, it's not going to be in vain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to help you through this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make sure that it is a means of you purging your own, your own sins and whatever mistakes you have made. It's a type of cleansing. It's like, you have a house, and now you have a lot of time, so you come and you clean that house out, and then you have a nice clean area, and that's what this is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using this to purge our iman, our faith, and our heart, and everything inside, and that's what this hadith is for. That's what's mentioned. But there's one more element to it. One is the purging and the cleaning. Now the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in another hadith. He said, "Ajaban li amri al-mu'min, inna al-amra kullahu khayr." That very strange is the situation or for a believer, because whatever situation a believer is in, whatever circumstance a believer is in, is always good for him. وَلَيْسَ ذَلِكَ لِأَحَدٍ إِلَّا الْمُؤْمِنِ. And this is not the situation for anyone except for a believer. A believer is in a good situation no matter what situation he is in. No matter what circumstance they might find themselves, it is good for a believer. He's in a good situation, he thanks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the believer is now in a good situation. Right? This is good for him. And if the believer is suffering, he or she is going through some sort of hardship or difficulty, they remain patient. And as they are patient, and they are seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's reward, this is good for them. So for really what we see here, that this is an opportunity, and that's what this hadith is trying to teach us. For us, no matter which circumstance or situation you find yourself in, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's an opportunity to improve yourself and make yourself better. It's an opportunity in every way, shape, or form. Any way you look at it, it is a positive thing. So that's the second element, the second perspective of this whole situation that we are in. Number one, it is a cleaning, right? A sense of purging ourselves. And number two, it's a sense of adding, right? By taking advantage of the situation, you are improving. Like I said, using the same example of a house or your own room. You clean it, and after you clean it, then you add onto it and you make it even more beautiful, and you make it even more, something, even more attractive. So this is how we view this situation, this isolation, this quarantine. For a believer, it's a means of positive things. Nothing but good can happen. Even though we are suffering, but still positivity will come out from it. Still goodness will come out from it, because this is the promise of the Prophet ﷺ. And if it's a promise from the Prophet ﷺ, then this is a promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. So that's the first part of it. Now, what about the whole aspect of being in a quarantine, us isolating ourselves from the rest of this world? How are we supposed to view this? How are we supposed to see this? So this is something also that we're meant to kind of look and see and observe, that as Muslims, is this really okay for us to be in this situation? So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, Al-Muslim man salim al-muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. That a believer, a Muslim, is that person who other people, other Muslims, and even though this hadith specifically mentions Muslims, but it also mentions other people, that they are safe from his hand and his tongue. So if people are safe from their hand and from the hand and the tongue, what does that mean? That means for us in this situation where there's harm everywhere, you don't know whether you could be carrying the virus or not. And for you to go out and meet other people and talk to other people and see them, and potentially spread it even further, even though you may be an inactive, host, somebody who has it but it doesn't feel the symptoms. or even maybe you're taking on, somebody else has it, you're interacting with them, you're taking it on, then you're spreading to other people as well. So a Muslim, our responsibility is protection. This is part of our identity, it's part of who we are, that we protect each other from ourselves first and foremost. We have a responsibility from ourselves to protect other people. And there's also other hadiths where the Prophet ﷺ said, "La darara wa la dirar," that there is no harm, right? There should be no harm done, and there should be no reciprocating of any harm. Which means if there's some bad and harm that is there, a Muslim should not be the one who is giving it or taking it. Right? So la darara wa la dirar. So you put all of these things in consideration, and also the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, "La yuridu muridun ala musih."